Alright, so this video will be about how to handle depression. And, I'm obviously not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whatever, but you know what? They ain't doing too good either, because it seems to me that a lot of people are mentally having some mental issues in this day and age, you know what I mean? So maybe it's time maybe we shouldn't be listening to these people so much, you know? First off, thanks for all the subs, the likes, the comments. I appreciate you. Thanks for the tips, Venmo, Cashapp, PayPal. Appreciate you. Thanks for the support on Patreon. I appreciate you. And yeah, don't worry about it. I'm gonna get back on it soon. I'm still stuck in this fucking parking lot, and I've been pretty busy lately, believe it or not. So, I was at my buddy's house all weekend helping him move furniture. Then another friend of mine came down from Philly yesterday, or the day before yesterday, so I hung out with him. And then another buddy of mine that I haven't seen in like 10 years popped up. So, I mean, believe me, I want to be putting up more videos than this, but I haven't gotten a chance lately. Anyways, so yeah, this will be about like how to handle depression, because I've been depressed, and I got myself out of it. And I do believe that anyone can get themselves out of it without any kind of chemicals, like prescription or otherwise. Another thing, we might get some interruptions here. That I'm in this parking lot and there's a lot of shit going on all around me. But so the first thing you got to realize, in my opinion, if you're feeling like depressed and just you're not feeling too good mentally, you got to realize that most of the population is in the same boat as you. You know what I mean? And I would be too, had I not done a lot of things that would be considered literally crazy in this day and age. I had to do a lot of things that weren't normal to kind of get myself mentally fit. You know what I mean? But what you got to realize is that this society that we find ourselves in, that we were born into, it's basically hostile in every way, shape, and form to mental health. It's like everywhere you turn, there's something that's gonna fuck with your head. And literally, it's like, I mean, just about every aspect of this entire fucking system. And it's like, people try to be all edgy, like, oh, don't blame the system and this and that. It's like, look, man, it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's like, the truth is the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, this society is friggin' messed up. It's upside down, and it's literally insane. The lunatics are running the asylum, literally. So, like, in my opinion, the people who just function well in this society and just float through life and think everything's fine, those are the people who are fucked in the head, in my opinion, because there's just so much shit going on. I mean, like, you got to realize that we have been brainwashed and socially engineered since before we were born. Our generations back, we've been fucked with mentally. It's like they've got us all divided by race, by gender, by it's like they've got everyone basically at each other's throats. It's like, all these things will fuck with you mentally. They're getting you all angry and upset about things. Like, I follow some accounts on Instagram that just kind of rip on the left constantly, and it's hilarious to me. But a lot of people following these accounts get genuinely enraged at some of the shit that the left does, with trying to, like, pushing drag queen story hours and shit. Like, they're getting these people are getting filled with rage from this shit. And, like, it's just, you can't let things fuck with you like that. You know what I mean? You can't let things get, and believe me, I fall victim to it too. You know how many people I've argued with on the internet over things that realistically have nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've learned to stop doing that, because it just turns into me being funny and ripping on them and making fun of them. And it's like, which is funny and it's entertaining, and it's practice for me with hecklers doing stand-up. And that's kind of one of the main reasons I do it. It helps me to keep my mind sharp, keep me snapping, and, like, thinking of ways to cut people down very quickly. But the other thing is, I kind of feel bad afterwards a lot of the time, because I'm like, this guy, I, I'm a, I'm I'm a pretty good comedian, so it's like they don't really have much of a chance against me, and it almost seems like unfair. And I snap on these motherfuckers in a pretty funny way a lot of the time, but like, it doesn't make me feel good in the long run. It makes me chuckle and laugh while it's happening, but I mean, they've just got us all they've got us all fucked up, man. And it's like, how can you be happy? There's a quote from, I think, Charles Bukowski. He's like, how can you be happy waking up at 6 in the morning? You gotta force feed yourself, brush your teeth, take a shit, take a shower, get in traffic to go to some fucking job that you can't stand. It's like, who the hell would be happy under those circumstances? It takes effort, you know? And like I said, I've been depressed. And you know when I was depressed the most is when life was, believe it or not, when I'm least fit mentally, is when my life is going kind of easy, and I've just like when I used to try to get steady jobs and all that shit, and I'd be living in that apartment, I was clinging to comfort and security. But what I was realizing after a while was, and I would consider it like, okay, things are going good. I've got a good job. I'm making decent money. I can go out on the weekends and party. I'm chilling all week after work, eating good food, smoking weed, playing video games. Then on the weekend, I'm going out and partying. I had a bunch of friends. But the reality was, when I was sitting there alone at night and smoking my weed, I was not very happy. I was actually kind of depressed. And I was like, why? Well, shouldn't I be like happy? I've got food. I've got everything I need. I've got a roof over my head. And I'm like, it just didn't make sense to me, But what I realized was, after a while, I started to realize that when things were not going good and I was struggling and fighting and battling through life, I was not depressed. I was actually at my sharpest, like mentally and physically, and I was on point, And so that was another reason why I quit the job when I got it at Belmont, because I knew where I was headed. The job wasn't even old to me yet, but I knew that, I'd be retiring from the job in like 20 years. I was thinking to myself, am I going to spend the next 20 years just, in an apartment, chilling during the week, too tired to do anything, and then partying on the weekends? This was the exact pattern I fell into once I started working at Belmont. The exact same pattern that I escaped from when I left Florida. I was right back to it, just basically, and it was actually, I was enjoying it, to be honest, at the time, because I had just come off unemployment and I was too broke to do anything. So I was enjoying, having money and being able to go out and drink and have fun again and all this shit. But I knew where I was headed, and I knew that 20 fucking years of this, and even whatever, like, I knew it wasn't the path. I knew it wasn't going to lead to, I knew where it was going to lead. It was going to lead to me being depressed, sitting in some apartment, probably end up, ending up with some girl that I'm going to be tired of in a matter of years too, like, if not a matter of months. I just realized that everything, all this external shit, it was not the answer. I realized that. And I also realized that, I can't really pursue stand-up if I'm going to work this full-time job. So that was another major factor. But I was like, basically, like, I just knew that I was going to be real tired of that life within a year or two. And I mean disgustingly tired of it, to where I might not have even wanted to continue on, like, I just couldn't. I had already been through it too many times, and I knew where it takes me mentally, and it's not a good place. It's depressing. So, when I and then I quit the job and I ended up homeless. But let me tell you something. when I was, the whole time I was homeless, I was never depressed. I was kind of the opposite of depressed. I was like, I was too busy planning and you know, strategizing on how to get money every day so I could put a roof over my head, because you had to pay for an overnight at the internet cafe. So every fucking morning when I woke up, I knew I had to make 30 to 50 bucks. That was it. I didn't have time to be depressed. I knew that I had to get my ass up and out in that park as long as the weather was permitting it, and I had to hustle up my money. And it was like depression was not an option. And what I realized after going through that for a couple years, yeah, it was hard. It was so hard that I couldn't even think, like, all I could think about was, you know, taking it one day at a time. You ever heard that expression? Like, I couldn't think about, there was times in the winter when I was really struggling where I'd be thinking, like, how am I gonna fucking make it to the end of the winter? It's fucking, you know, it's like it's January 10th and I've got another 2 months, and I'm like, I can't even think about it. All I can think about is how I'm gonna get through fucking today, how I'm gonna eat today. I can't think, it's too much. I can't even, you know, what's gonna happen tomorrow, I'll fucking deal with it tomorrow. What's gonna happen next month, I'll deal with it then. I can't even fucking think of it right now, you know? It's too much. It would like overwhelm me. So I'd be just one day at a time, dude. Just let me get through today. But I wasn't depressed because I was too busy trying to survive. You know what I mean? And another thing is, you know, and I'm not trying to make anyone feel any worse or whatever, but here's the thing with depression. It's like, if you're depressed, realistically, all you're really thinking about is yourself. Let me tell you something. If you go out and you, you know, if you start doing good things for others and shit, your depression's gonna dissipate. It's like, if all you're worried about is your own happiness and that's all you dwell on, then yeah, that's probably gonna lead to kind of depression and stuff, you know? You need something bigger to aim for. So like, you know, if your life is spent basically just chasing pleasure, then yeah, it's gonna lead to depression. But if you were, let's say you were working towards building a, you know, some sort of no-kill shelter for animals, you wouldn't have time to be depressed. You'd have too much shit to do. You'd have too much shit going on. And it's like, I've noticed the people who are depressed, they really don't, they're kind of just wrapped up in their own situation. They don't think much outside of their own circumstances. You know what I mean? But, you know, it's like, when I was on the street and I was homeless, if I had extra money, and I'd see people panhandling all the time, and I can tell when I look at a motherfucker, I'm like, is this guy really hurting? Is he really, or is this like, is he like a veteran on the street? He knows what he's doing. He don't need my buck. I didn't have a lot of money to spare a lot of times. But sometimes I'd look someone in the eyes, I'm walking by and I'm like, this person is in over their head and they need help. So let me throw them a buck, because that, you know, $1 sometimes is a win when shit's all fucked up and you're out on the street like that. So like, but then I realized, like, just being that way and being concerned for others, kind of, you ain't got no, you don't get depressed, you know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but I was more concerned with how others were doing, because I knew I could handle it. I was a veteran out there, you know what I mean? I knew that, yeah, times are tough and this and that, but thank God for giving me the skills to be able to make money every day and you know, to be physically and mentally strong enough to handle these things. And some of these people are in over their heads, you know? So like, you know, it led to me kind of being more happy, you know what I mean? Just being more concerned for other people, you know what I mean? And it's not like I was like, you know, oh, I'm such a good person, this and that. It just, I was just more concerned for others than myself, because I had it covered, you know what I mean? I didn't have to worry about me. I knew that no matter what the fuck happens, I got God with me, and you know, and I'm a skilled, smart person. I'm gonna figure it out. And it, you know, worst come to worst, If I only got $1 to eat, I can eat off $1. You know what I mean? I'll find a way, you know? So I wasn't too concerned with, once I kind of figured out what I was doing, I wasn't real concerned with myself. I was more concerned with other people out there, because I realized a lot of the times how fortunate I was to have the skills and abilities that God gave me. And I'd be thinking to myself, man, what the fuck? How do these people, what are they supposed to do? They can't do a lot of the things I can do. I can draw pictures, my art style sells, you know, like I can tell jokes, people fucking, you know, I can make money, bro. You can put me in any city in this country with nothing. And I'm literally nothing. And within a few days, I'll be making hundreds of dollars every day doing portraits. All I need is a fucking Sharpie and a piece of cardboard, and I will make a sign about selling portraits, and I'll be making money. Like, thank God for giving me this ability, because no matter what happens in life, you know, I'm gonna figure it out. I know that much. So that kind of helps with not being depressed. You know what I mean? So, you know, if you're feeling depressed and shit, you need to, first of all, you got to realize that, yeah, it's normal. In this day and age, in this society we live in, this hostile, mentally unhealthy society, it is normal to have some issues adjusting to it. That is totally fucking normal. Your brain chemicals aren't fucked up. I don't know, you know, like I said, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it seems to me that these pharmaceutical companies have a lot of pull, and they're pretty slick with their advertising, and with them, you know, they do a lot of mental manipulation and shit, where people think like, oh, the reason I don't feel good is because the chemicals in my brain are wrong. Like, no, I don't think that's the case. You know what I mean? Because let me tell you something. If God was creating people with the wrong chemicals in their brain, mankind would not have survived. You know what I mean? Like, do you think our ancestors were depressed when they were hunting fucking woolly mammoths with sticks and rocks? You know what I mean? Do you think any of them were depressed? Like, do you think any of them could afford to not be mentally on point? You know what I mean? But if you give them everything they need, and you basically, you know, mentally brainwash them into thinking very little of themselves, which is what happens in our society. From the day you were born, things have been happening that have been fucking with your brain. I can tell you that much. It's too much for me to go into. Maybe, I mean, I've got a video on Patreon about brainwashing and social engineering. But, I mean, it happens in such a subtle way that we're all brainwashed to one degree or another, all of us. And including me, you know what I mean? I also realize that I tend to lean kind of right nowadays, but I also realize Tucker Carlson, I get a kick at him, he's funny, but I also realize that he's as much of a manipulation as CNBC and CNN. He's getting people all riled up and upset. It's all a big fucking show to get everyone's brain all fucked up, basically, and that goes for the left and the right. They got us all fucked up, you know? 9 times out of 10 we're arguing about things that really don't matter, you know? Like, I'm not even going to get into it, because then I'm going to have people in the comments arguing about that political bullshit, so I'm not even going to get into it. But, like, it's just, this society is unnatural, and you should not, don't be thinking to yourself that something is wrong with you, because I can tell you this much. Nothing is wrong with you. Most likely, not a thing is wrong with you. Your issue is that, you know, this world got you in such a messed up position that, and you think it's your fault. It really, you know, it's better to take responsibility for your actions and your position. This way, you know you're in control to change it. But the reality is that 9 times out of 10, the circumstances you find yourself in are not exactly your fault. It's like you were brought up in this unnatural setting where you got to try to adapt and figure it out, and it's not easy. You know, it's very fucking hard. And it seems like the people who do adapt and do well are like sociopaths. They're feelingless, they're emotionless, they don't mind fucking people out of their money, you know. Like, it seems to me that, you know, if you're having issues with this lifestyle and this way of life that we find ourselves in, to me that's a sign of a mentally healthy person, you know. Now, the thing with, like, you know, mental illness or whatever, a lot of people, they say that the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I didn't used to agree with it because I was thinking, like, that just doesn't sound right. But once I really got to thinking about it, it makes sense. Because basically what that's saying is that someone, deep down, they know the truth. They know that if they keep doing the same thing, it's not going to work. Yet they keep doing it, even though they know that it's not going to work. So basically, that being the case, the cure for insanity is just accepting the truth, whatever the truth is, even if it's something that you don't want to face. If you want, you know, to be mentally fit and mentally strong, you got to accept it. In that book, Hagakure, it's a bunch of quotes from samurais. One of the quotes, it says, I'll link the book in the description. It's a really good book. It says, one of the quotes, it says, "The way of the samurai is found in death." Now, what that means is, and I read someone wrote a blog about, like, you know, they were trying to explain what that quote means, and I gotta say they were way off. So, in their blog, they wrote, in the Hagakure, it says, "The way the samurai is found in death, so you should meditate on death daily." And so in this blog, this person wrote, they were like, you know, I read the Hagakure and that quote really stuck with me, so I've been meditating on death daily. So I meditate and I imagine I'm in a sword fight, and you know, most of the time I lose in my meditating sword fight, but today I won. And I was thinking to myself, that's not what the fucking quote is about. It's like, imagining yourself in a sword fight that's not the way of the samurai. The way of the samurai is basically, so the quote is, "The way of the samurai is found in death." Now, we have a hard time kind of conceptualizing real death in a sword fight. So for us, that quote almost means nothing, but really what it means is, whatever you're afraid of, meditate on that, and meditate on dealing with it and facing with it, and whatever it brings, it brings. Now, you can imagine losing a sword fight if you want, but realistically, what you should be imagining is, if you lost your job and you lost everything and you ended up homeless, don't be afraid of it. The quote is basically saying that the way of the samurai is found in not fearing death, not fearing the worst outcome, accepting it, whatever it is. You're gonna handle it. You're gonna be good. That's, you know. So you can meditate on losing a sword fight or dying in a war or a battle, but realistically, you're probably not gonna find yourself in that position. What you should be meditating on is the things that actually scare you. You know, I'm sure death scares everyone in the long run. Maybe not. I don't know. But in order to adapt that quote for our day and age, basically what it means is face what you're afraid of, you know, because once you do that, and I did it, being homeless and many other things I faced, but as you face these things that you're afraid of, it doesn't make you all of a sudden you're fearless and nothing scares you, but what it does is it makes you realize that whatever happens, it's not the end of the world. You're going to be okay. There's really no reason to be afraid. Fear makes everything worse than it actually is. The fear of something and then actually dealing with it, the fear is way worse. I can tell you from experience. And so once you kind of face these things that deep down you are afraid of, you do become less afraid of them. Like me personally, I don't want to go sleep on the street no more, but I know that I can. I know that I'm going to be all right. I know it's not going to be easy. It's never been easy, but I know I can handle it. And so I don't have to walk walk around and live my life with this fear of, you know, I can say whatever the fuck I want. Nobody can do nothing to me, really. They can maybe beat my ass, or they can take everything I own, but you know what? I'm gonna be okay, you know? So I don't have to be afraid of those things. So you know what I mean? Like, and that helps you mentally to not have these fears in the back of your mind where you're doing things you don't want to do and you're acting in ways you don't want to act. Let me give you an example. One time while I was homeless, I'm sitting there in Starbucks in Manhattan, charging my phone, drinking my coffee, minding my own business, playing with my phone. And there's this table of like young professionals right next to me. I'm homeless. I don't look homeless. I don't smell homeless, but I'm homeless. But you couldn't really tell by looking at me. You know, I look like a somewhat normal person. I looked as normal as I look now. I don't know if I'm normal, but this table of like young professionals is sitting next to me, and they're on this team and they're working on some project. And they're all trying to act all enthusiastic, and I could just sense the falsehood in all of them. And I don't even know how to explain it, but I knew that none of them were being honest, none of them were being real. They were all pretending to be really into this project that they have to do for this high-paying job that they are afraid to lose, and none of them trust each other. They don't want, you know, to be like told on or whatever if they did something wrong. And so these people are all sitting here, and none of them can be real. They can't afford to. They've got too much to lose. And I'm sitting there, all my possessions sitting outside of Starbucks tied to a bicycle, and I don't give a fuck about shit. I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, chilling. I got money in my pocket. I don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? And they're sitting there filled with anxiety and tension, and they've got, you know, they're normal. These are normal people, but they're all lying. They're all being fake. And so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, I would not trade positions with any of these people. Yeah, I'm homeless, and yeah, you know, there's definitely some advantages and disadvantages to all situations, but I wouldn't trade places with them, because one thing I have that they do not have is I can be myself, I can be honest, and I don't have to answer to anyone but God himself. Nobody, not a single person on this planet can fucking tell me what to do. I'll take orders from people. If I respect someone and I know that they know better than me, I'll be happy to learn from them. I'll be happy to. I've learned from lots of people in my life. When I come across someone who I think is like higher evolved than me, I don't do nothing but absorb everything I can off them. You know what I'm saying? I don't, you know, when I'm around someone that I feel is, for lack of a better word, like superior to me, like higher up, you know, like Pai Mei in Kill Bill. Like if I run into someone who I think can teach me, I learn as much as I can from them. So, you know, it's not like I'm sitting here acting like I know everything, because I don't. But I was sitting there watching these people and thinking to myself, I wouldn't trade positions for them for, I don't care if they're giving me $10K a month, I wouldn't do it. Because then you know, I want to be at peace with myself. That's what matters most to me. Being at peace with myself, being at peace with God, knowing deep down that I did what was right, and I always, you know, I didn't fucking, you know, what do you call it? Like profit off of other people's losses. And I'm not saying you're evil or wrong. It's the world we grew up in. You shouldn't do it, and you're only hurting yourself, is my point, basically. So, you know, the people who are depressed and shit, you gotta trace these feelings back. You gotta figure out exactly why and how you feel that way, and you can do it. It's gonna take some concentration, it's gonna take some effort, but you gotta think back to exactly why do you feel this way? Why are you not happy? Because happiness is right there, you know what I mean? It's you're capable, I guarantee it. I've been happy with very little in my life, and I'm truly happy and truly at peace with very little. Everything I owned was on a bicycle, you know? So yeah, I realized that, and that confirmed for me. I was like, I made the right decision by quitting that job, because I mean, you know, working with the blue collar jobs I worked at, you didn't have to sit there acting all enthusiastic and being all fake. That's why I chose blue collar work. One of the reasons. Plus, I'm a physical person. I like to work outside and all that. But another reason I like blue collar jobs is because I didn't have to sit there and act like something I wasn't. I could show up to work and, you know, do my work. I didn't have to kiss people's asses or anything like that. I hung out with the people I liked on the jobs. I avoided the people I didn't like. I didn't have to pretend to be something I wasn't, you know? And so, yeah, all in all, and I guarantee all those people at that table were having depression issues and shit like that, because when you're sitting there being something you're not, you know, 8 hours out of every day, at the end of the day, you know, even if you don't realize it, it's probably affecting the way you feel. I could go on this subject for a long time. If I think of more points, maybe I'll make another video on this, because I want to help people with this state of mind, because I know people who are depressed, but it's like talking to a fucking brick wall with these people. I don't know. Hopefully I can get through to some people through the internet, but most of the people I know in my day-to-day life, and I try to help them out and tell them some of the things I've learned. It's almost like you know, we end up getting into arguments because they'll be like, oh, you don't know everything, you live in your fucking car and this and that. I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to, that's not my purpose here. I'm trying to get you to fucking realize that, you know, you can be happy. You know, it's like I get into, and I just get tired of it. So hopefully I can get through to some of y'all that are feeling depressed and shit. And I like to say, inbox me if you got any questions, but the truth is, shit's been so crazy for me lately, I haven't had much of a chance to respond to many messages, to be totally honest. Shit's been nuts for me lately. I'm trying to get everything figured out. I got a lot of shit going on, so. But here's a quote, and I wrote it down because it's such a good one. And this has to do with this situation. So, you ever heard of John Steinbeck? He wrote Of Mice and Men. I think he wrote The Grapes of Wrath. Another book that he wrote that is not so well known was he wrote the King Arthur story, which actually he died before he finished it, but I read what he wrote. And one of the quotes in the book, it's one of the best quotes I ever heard, and so it says, "And then Arthur learned, as all leaders are astonished to learn, that peace, not war, is the destroyer of men. Tranquility rather than danger is the mother of cowardice, and not need but plenty brings apprehension and unease. Finally he found that the longed-for peace, so bitterly achieved, created more bitterness than ever did the anguish of achieving it. King Arthur watched in apprehension while the young knights who should have filled the fighting ranks dissipated their strength in the mires of complaint, confusion, and self-pity, condemning the old time without having created a new one." So basically what happened was, once they beat all the enemies, all the knights basically turned into a bunch of whiny, complaining, depressed, you know, they were like diminishing. Like when they had a war to fight, they were strong, they were tough, but now that they finally got peace, it's like that's what's destroying them. The war wasn't what destroyed them. The peace is what's destroying them. You know what I mean? Hopefully this makes sense. I gotta watch this video back. Every time I make a video, I feel like I didn't make any sense, but then I watch it back and I'm like, that made sense, you know? So, but yeah, my whole point with the depression thing is, maybe you need some challenges. Maybe, maybe I was just watching this guy on Instagram today. He climbs skyscrapers with no safety equipment, and people in the comments are like, this guy's an idiot, this and that. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I get it, bro. It ain't the same with safety equipment, with a safety net. It's not, I had to ditch everything I had and go out on the street with no safety net. I couldn't have that safety and security, the comfort, because let me tell you something. When there's no safety and shit's real, that's how you find out what you're really made of. You know what I mean? That's when you find out truly capable of. Because when you know you got some safety and you know there's no real danger, you're really not going to push yourself to the absolute fucking limits. You know what I mean? So I get it, bro. I get it. This guy, people were saying he's a dumbass and this and that, but I get it. He's out there figuring out who he really is, and from what I can see, the guy is a motherfucking a badass, bro. You know what I mean? He's a fucking wolf, 100%. I get it, bro. You know what I mean? So maybe what you need is more challenges. Maybe what you need is to be less afraid. Start thinking about what is it you're afraid of truly. And you really gotta, it's not easy to know yourself. What's that Latin, the Latin phrase on top of the oracle's door in the Matrix, when he goes in and it says tenet noce, I think, know thyself. There's a reason that quote has been around for thousands and thousands of years, because if you know yourself truly, you're ahead of 90% of the population. And it's very hard to know yourself because in order to know yourself, you have to accept aspects of yourself that you don't like. You know what I mean? There's parts of me that I don't like, you know? I'm not going to go into them, but yeah, there's aspects of my personality that I don't like, you know what I mean? But I accept it, and it is what it is, you know? I accept myself. There's truths that I don't want to be true, but they are true, so the only thing that gets accomplished by avoiding the truth is I'm hurting myself, you know? So face the truths you don't want to face. And some people, look, you're only going to be able to even sense the truths that you're ready to face, you know what I mean? There's some that are just so harsh that I'm sure there's truths that I still have hidden that I haven't faced, you know what I mean? I'm sure there are, because there's just, you know, we are complex, complicated creatures, you know? I mean, when all is said and done, yeah, we're animals, but we are fucking complex, man. But so yeah, know thyself, man. Figure it out. Know yourself. You know, figure out what you're afraid of. Figure out why you're afraid of it. Figure out what you can do to, you know, to get a handle on that, and not let it dictate your life. You know, you gotta, instead of just subconsciously being guided through life by your fears and insecurities, you should consciously guide yourself through life by facing these things and dealing with them and accepting them. You know, the way of the samurai is found in death. Just figure it out. Figure out what you're scared of and face it and deal with it, and you're gonna be all right. And that's another thing, just know that when all is said and done, you're gonna be all right. I don't give a shit what situation you end up in. It ain't the end of the world, and things change. And you know, when things are bad, you gotta realize that it is not gonna last forever. You don't sit there feeling sorry for yourself. You know, do what you can and be the best version of yourself you can be. And if you do these things, you're not going to be depressed, because when all is said and done, when you know you did your best, you know, and you know you didn't, you know you stayed true to yourself, you know you stayed true to God, you're going to feel pretty good at the end of the day. That's what I think. So yeah, if you got any questions, throw them in the comments. You can shoot me an email or hit me up on Instagram. But you got to realize that I'll get around to it sooner or later, the message, you know what I mean? I try to respond to everyone, but sometimes I don't get to it all. Anyways, so watch this video back, see if it makes sense, see if I got to refilm it. Glad there was no distractions or any stupid shit happening around me. Once again, thanks for the subs, the likes, the comments. Thanks for the support. Venmo, Cashapp, PayPal, and thanks for the Patreons. I appreciate every single one of yous. And I'm gonna go live later in the week. We'll figure it out. I'll either put it on Instagram. My Instagram's New York Gritty, or I'll put it on what do you call it? The community thing on my YouTube page. All right, so have a good one, y'all. See y'all when I go live.